Welcome everyone here on a Thursday evening at From the Heart Business Networking. Tonight we have some really invaluable information coming from one of our fellow sister companies, Be Connected World. Chloe and I met through that connection, and I'm really grateful that she's come here tonight to give us some education on all things legal when it comes to keeping our things protected. So I will give it over to you, Chloe.
Thank you, Alison. So I guess I'll work through, I've got a PowerPoint. I know PowerPoints can become really drony if you're just kind of reading through the words. So I'm going to go over it, and we can either get to the end and you can ask me any questions that relate to your business or anything I might be able to help with, or general questions you're curious about, or I'm happy for you to interrupt and just ask me as we go along while it's fresh in your mind, and we can talk about it. So I won't drag it out. I'll go over it, and then if it's something we want to dig into, feel free to ask. So I'll just share my screen to the dreaded PowerPoint. Oh, let me see. Is it sharing? Can you guys see the screen?
No.
Not yet. Let me make you co-host again, and if you click that button, it should let you share now.
Hopefully it's not my settings or something, because my actual real laptop is being repaired, and I've had to log into everything on my daughter's one. Let's try that again. Why didn't I test this? Hold on.
Can't help from here. I'm not that Zoom tech savvy.
I think it's the settings on the Mac that I'm using and not letting me share the screen. I don't know, Dre, do you know anything about this? It's a bit soon to call on your
Yeah, I don't use Mac.
He's not a Mac person.
Oh, that's not your bag. You're like, okay. Give me 1 second.
Once you click on share, it should ask you.
Yeah. Okay. So share screen. I select the screen I want to share. I click share. Nothing's happening. Okay.
Might be the permissions.
Let me just check the settings. I think it might be in permissions. I'll just quickly check that. Give me 1 moment, and if I can't, I'll just talk through it without. It would just be useful to share it because it's quite information intensive.
while we're waiting for Chloe, we'll flip it around. Does anyone have anything coming up that they'd like to share, that they'd like to celebrate, or that they'd like support with? We normally do that at the end, but while Chloe's just getting all of that set up, I thought we might just flip it around.
I was just going to say just one extra thing to what you were saying about parents and support and how difficult it is. I went through sole parent with my daughters, and it was at a time when SIDS was a big thing and everybody was terrified of babies dying and what have you. What I would tell myself as an older person to that young mother trying to keep body and soul together with my little family is to trust yourself, your gut feelings. Don't keep listening to people saying, no, you can't do that, or you must do this, or you must do that. Absolutely trust your gut and do the things. It would have been a lot simpler for me had we done that. Yeah.
And that's why, like, someone said to me, oh, I'm a grandmother now, you know, I'm a bit too old to be in your group. And I said, you don't understand. You've got experience, lived experience, and tips and tricks that you've learned along the way that people, you know, my age and even my daughter's age with my grandkids have never heard of, because we've never come across that. Or, you know, being an older grandmother or aunt or whatever you are, you still have valuable insight into helping support someone who maybe just needs to hear that they're not doing a bad job. It's just, you know, kids have those. I did warn my daughter when my grandson started kindy this year about that 5-year-old regression. When it comes to, I'm a big kid now, I don't have to listen to you. My teacher is God. You know, they go through that real independent, you know, I'm no longer a kid. You can't treat me. You can't tell me what to do, you know, all of that stuff. And she kept saying, oh, he hasn't gone through it yet. He hasn't, you know, he's not really doing that. And well, this term, guess what? And I said, I even warned you it was coming. And she's like, I know, but I didn't know it was like this. And I'm like, it's all of those little tips and tricks that we learn along the way that aren't in the parenting books, that aren't in all of the things. And I'm co-writing a few books with some people, but I've also got one of my own that's called Not Another Effing Parenting Book, because it's all of the advice that someone out there is going to say, oh, no, don't do that. Oh, no, I did it this way. You know what? You don't need someone to tell you how to parent. You just need to hear, you know, well, I tried this and that didn't work, but this did, or vice versa, and make up your own mind. Like, it's just coming together and sharing what we know and hoping that it helps, really.
Absolutely. I mean, children, you know, you know your own children.
Yeah.
So, you know, you really do need to follow your gut on everything as far as your children are concerned. You are the only one that knows your children.
And it's funny you say that. Looking back, Dre and I have had some conversations lately, and looking back when he was 10, at the time, we just thought he was really clingy and, you know, really attached to me. I would take him into school and they would literally have to pry him off me so I could leave the school grounds. He would run out the gate, run after me like it was he was a mummy's boy, always has been more of a mummy's boy than dad. But things that we're learning about now in our lives, I look back then and I go, oh, that's what that was. Like, you know, we didn't know what the signs and stuff were back then to give it a name and to understand it. Whereas now that he's 23, sorry. Yep. I know, mother of the year over here. You know, we look back and we're adding all of these 2 and 2s together from his life so far. And we're like, oh, that all, like when we put it all together, that all adds up and makes so much more sense than what we even thought, you know, was happening. So yeah, it's hindsight is incredible as well. Yeah, I mean, my kids teach me way more than I've ever taught them. Yeah, it's great.
If I can add another perspective to that, like being someone who lost both her parents as my daughter was born, like just having people that have been there, done that, and, you know, dare say, like, grandparents, you know, foster grandparents, and just to be able to go and have a coffee and go, God, this week was hard. And I said to Alison the other day, so my mum was one of 6, and I said something to my nan about my daughter, who is brilliant and she's great, and they all just have their days. And I was like, oh my God, Nan, like, you wouldn't believe it. She was driving me crazy. And she's like, yeah, but you've just got one. Like, you're so lucky that you weren't chasing 6. And I was like, oh, perspective. But it could also just be like having other people around you where, like, I'm really lucky. I have close friends. I have Alison, and I've got someone that helps me look after Lily with me. Her dad's not around a lot. And like, sometimes it's just nice to be able to sit with a group of people and go, God, parenting was bloody hard this week. You know, and sometimes it's the old wives' tales that no one really talks about anymore that work the best, that you can go, my God, how do I get this freaking lipstick stain out? And Lucia probably has the perfect cure for that, being in her industry, and would know it's like, I don't know, baking soda and vinegar and some like oil of cloves or something ridiculous that I would not know clearly. But
Yeah.
it's just the things that you just don't know, like, that I think adds a lot of value.
Yeah.
They do. Can I share a funny story?
Yeah, go ahead.
I had my daughter home, and she was about 3 months old, and I was by myself, and she was screaming, and it was about 4 hours of absolute screaming, and I didn't know who to turn to. My parents were quite elderly, and I rang my sister-in-law and I said, I'm absolutely, I don't know what to do. I can't stop this child from crying. And I said, can you bring over some brandy? And she turned up with an eyedropper. She thought I was going to give the brandy to the child. I wanted the brandy for me to settle my nerves. But anyway, she picked my daughter up, and within 2 seconds she was asleep. I could have absolutely put my fingers around her neck.
Throw it in the bin. Yep.
Absolutely.
I've threatened my youngest child, she's 8, and I've threatened to throw her in the bin 3 times this week, and it's only Thursday. We left the place we were at the other day, and she said, well, I survived. You didn't put me in the bin. Oh, we can turn around. Like, you want to go back? We wouldn't go back. Sticky thing.
I think that's one of the big things with bringing up children is calling their bluffs.
Yeah.
I see so many mothers pandering to children where they should be going,
Yeah.
on that.
I think there's I think the perfect space is a little bit old school, a little bit new school, and bringing that in the middle, like knowing when to use what kind of thing is the key.
Yeah, and that saying, well, actually, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
When you're 2 and 3.
Yes, exactly.
I'm the adult in the room.
Lucia, what do you have to share?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So, you know, I think you and I spoke, Alison, when you were starting up from the heart, because I've never had kids of my own. And so it's like, oh my God, what have I got to offer, you know, when you don't have children of your own. But I remember being a child and I remember, you know, so many things that happened that you go, and to give you some context, I grew up on a dairy farm with 3 brothers, and we never went anywhere. Like, we literally, my mum suffered with a bit of mental illness as a young mum, and unsupported by her in-laws. She was in Australia without her own family. And so it was very, you know, our lives were like this. So I can remember walking down our driveway at the age of 13, pounding my chest, because it's like, do I live in the same world as the people on television? Like, I couldn't work out if there was actually, like, there was another world, you know. So when I hear people talking about going with your gut. I mean, I know that as an adult, I understand that. But as a little kid, I had, you know, if you had have told me about going with, like, it was not even in my language. So I think that, you know, if I was to have my time over, I think that the thing was to is to really, yeah, learn from people who, you know, to have the sense to learn from people who you wanted to be like, rather than necessarily where I was. You know, like, I love my family, and we never went anywhere, and we never really had social, you know, lots of social activity outside of the immediate family. So I would say that building a person's self-confidence and self-esteem and sense of self-worth would be the most important things when I look back on my own life. You know, to have had a sense of all of that as a younger person, I think that that would have made a massive difference to the various hiccups that I experienced in my younger life. Like, if I was able to say no at a very young age, it would have been a great thing. So I just thought I'd throw that in there, you know, just as a, even though, you know, as I said, I never had children of my own. I've got 7 nieces and nephews and 17 great grand nieces and nephews. And I have seen a lot around that. But having a close family network, yeah, I see that as making a massive difference in the families that I see have had wonderful relationships as adults. Yeah, like, that was something that was really a great, an observation of mine, not a judgment, but an observation. So
I think, though you haven't had children, the fact that you've witnessed other people have children, and
oh yeah,
look, I don't care who you are, whether you mean to or not, you notice something that someone else is doing, and you can't help but be a little judgmental sometimes. Sometimes you're just like, oh, that was not the right way to deal with that, whether you're a parent or you're not. But I think having witnessed all of the different things and watching how other people have done it, you do kind of get that little sense of, oh, if I was in that position, I would have done, or have you tried? So I think there's still a lot of value that you can add to a community like this because you've got that outsider experience.
Oh, look, you know, I mean, you know, as I mentioned before, I'm in the direct selling industry. All of my managers, all of my leaders are married women with kids, with families, the things that, you know, they've been through, and what I've worked with them through those things.
Yeah.
I mean, my uplines, the greatest lesson they ever taught me was that, you know, is number one is you.
Yeah.
Next is your family.
Mm.
Then there is, you know, then there is your, you know, your work. Like, those things are down the track, you know, but how well we look after ourselves, yeah, it is the number one priority, and making sure that we do that with our finances, with our emotions, with our you know, what gives us joy, you know, like, that's you know, how I live my life today. Yeah. So
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Faith, I might come back to you. I thought I stopped the recording.